Hello, thanks for being in a new video. This time I have full review of the Motorola Razr 40. Let's get started. This is a new proposal from Motorola that aims to reduce the price of folding devices that are generally very expensive. And it seems to me that it has succeeded in a good way, although we must also consider that with the passage of time, the folding of past generations also go down in price. But considering the latest generations of all folding bikes, it is undoubtedly a more economical alternative. Its launch price in Mexico has been $16,999. On the screen you have the reference price in dollars just to give you an idea, but remember that the prices here are not the same as there. I must anticipate that I like this foldable even more in some sections than the Motorola Razr 40 Ultra, which is supposed to be of a higher range than this device. Therefore, join me to know point by point what Motorola can offer us with it. The design is always among the most attractive points in foldables, and this one is no exception, despite the fact that in this edition the screen is much smaller. However, the vegan leather finish makes the touch very soft and very pleasant. The vegan leather covers are surrounded by an aluminum frame that will give it a good level of resistance to any fall, although as any folding device we could consider that it will be a little more fragile than traditional format devices. On the back, it comes with the logo of the brand and also the name of the Razr series. The hinge is rigid enough to give you new possibilities when using your device to take pictures or even as a base for watching videos or something similar. So I like it in that sense, although I must say that it does emit a creak when opening and closing it that makes the feel not so advanced or so premium. Fortunately, the device folds completely to leave no gaps, and with this not so much dust enters. On the right side, we have the volume buttons. We also have a microphone and the power button, which at the same time will be a fingerprint reader. On the left side is the tray. In it, you can place a nano SIM card, and there are other regions where a 2-card version is available. Finally, on the bottom, we have the main speaker, the USB-C port, and a microphone, and on the top, another microphone and the earpiece for calls that will also serve as a second speaker. It has a thickness of 7.35 millimeters when deployed, so it is extremely thin in this position, and its weight is 186 grams, and in addition to this option in purple, it is also available in gray. On the inside, we will notice that the fold area is marked, but not in a very exaggerated way, and the bezels are thin enough to have a good front use. However, one of its weakest points compared to other high-end devices is that it does not have water resistance, not even to splashes. This external display has a size of 1.5 inches and is an AMOLED panel of 194 by 368 pixels. Its density is 282, so we're going to see detailed text, or at least enough so that it doesn't feel so pixelated all over. It is a full color screen, but it is quite small. The brightness is high enough to have a good display outdoors, although it is not a screen that we can consider premium range. Some claim that this screen comes protected with Gorilla Glass Victus. However, Motorola does not make any specifications on their official sites. The internal screen is 6.9 inches in its diagonal, has Full HD Plus resolution, also has AMOLED technology, so it offers intense colors, high contrast, and good viewing angles. Although by the flexible material that has it is possible to generate more reflections, but this happens exactly the same with other folding. In this case, it offers us a LTPO technology also to go up to 144 Hz in its refresh rate, but it is also able to go down to 1 Hz when it is displaying static content in order not to consume so much energy. One good thing is that it also supports HDR10 plus content, so that it's going to be able to show you spectacularly this type of content. The ratio is 22:9, so it's a little bit higher than what's traditional for normal smartphones. The brightness is going to be high enough for comfortable outdoor use, but it's not spectacular, and the minimum brightness is fortunately very good for using this device comfortably at night. In fact, to avoid fatigue, it also has an anti-flicker mode, and you also have the night light filter mode to use it at night, and finally you have 2 color calibration modes in case you want less saturated colors. Definitely the quality of this internal display is extremely good, especially for the refresh rate, which is very high. However, this same parameter may play against it as the battery is very small, and this screen can consume too much energy when there is a lot of movement. Below you will hear an audio recorded with the 3 microphones of this device.
Esta es una prueba de audio grabada con el Motorola Razr 40 para que puedas notar la calidad de sus micrófonos y su grabación de sonido estéreo.
Thanks to the incorporation of the third microphone can improve audio pickup in noisy environments, and with respect to the speakers, we will also find a very good experience. The sound feels well balanced. It does not feel that there are frequencies that protrude more and that are annoying. In fact, it is also able to emit the bass well, and also its volume is correct. But the most remarkable thing is that it incorporates stereo sound. Let's listen to a small test, but remember that it is not the same to listen to it live. Something I really like is that it comes with Dolby Atmos that brings different presets of sound styles and also lets us access a 10-band equalizer with some presets and types of surround sound. All this without the need to have headphones connected. And while we are talking about this, remember that it does not bring 3.5mm jack, but fortunately it does support high-resolution codec for wireless sound. So if you have Bluetooth headphones that support the aptX adaptive codec or LHDC in version 3 or version 4, you will have an excellent sound experience also with wireless headphones. The front camera is 32 megapixels with f2.4 aperture and fixed focus. However, it does pixel fusion, which Motorola calls quad pixel, so pictures in auto mode will come out 8 megapixels. The capture speed is going to be positive, and if we hold down the shutter, we can also start a burst, although it doesn't look as fast. In the settings, we will find the possibility to enable automatic smile capture and also gesture selfie. This can be useful for taking pictures with the shutter away from your hand by simply showing your palm, and that's it. In the bottom right corner, we can also enable the beauty mode, which has many parameters. You can have a smart setting or also beautify the skin, improve the tone. If you want a tan tone, reddened or natural, you can also change the size of the eyes, make the face thinner, sharpen the nose, and the result does not look so fake. In addition to the beauty mode, we can also access a list of filters that we can preview in real time, and remember that you could also take pictures using the rear camera system with the help of the external display. Although the viewfinder is a bit small, but it still gives you these capabilities that you can only find in the foldable ones. The selfies look with good quality despite not having the full resolution of the sensor applied in the resulting photograph, but they look good. You can also notice that despite having fixed focus, even if you stretch the arm, still manages to get a good detail, although here it is more noticeable that it is not a photograph of much resolution. But remember that in the settings, if you can set the photos to be 32 megapixels indoors, the camera comes to suffer a little more due to the lower amount of available light, then begins to look much more grainy and more definition is lost in backlight. The preview is not optimized yet, but remember that if you have automatic HDR, then the result is much better. Balanced, giving texture to the most illuminated areas and having well lit also the area in shadows with this camera if we can do portrait photography, but the objects will not detect them well, therefore the result is very artificial in this sense, although the detection of the edges in people if correct. But look at the quality that can offer us with the main camera using the external screen. Without a doubt, greatly improves the colors, also improves the level of detail, improves the definition. Absolutely, everything is better taking pictures with this camera. In fact, you could also take pictures with the ultra-wide camera to gain a lot of space. Even with the ultra-wide backlight, the results come out very well. So I will always recommend taking selfies with the rear system, although even with the rear system in portrait mode is able to detect objects at night, the performance is regular. What you need is to be in a well-lit area to get a good picture. In scenarios where there is not enough light, is likely that the device automatically turn on the screen to better illuminate your face. Even in backlit scenes, the screen can compensate well the light to have a correct result. Simply that. The color balance can be a little weird if you are in an environment with warm lighting because the screen brings very cold lighting, but here are the results with the rear photo system, so that again you see the good quality we have even in these environments of low indirect lighting will give us a good result without the need to turn on the flash. Although in backlit scenes we would like to turn on the flash to improve the result, because in these conditions we'll not turn on the flash. The rear camera system is made up of the 64-megapixel main camera with f1.7 aperture laser-supported autofocus and also optical stabilization. On the other hand, we have the 13-megapixel ultra-wide camera with f2.2 aperture and autofocus, which will give you macro photography capabilities as well. So within the foldable, I find it one of the most attractive cameras. The only thing that would fall a little short probably is the zoom. The capture speed is not that amazing. In fact, it's going to be a little bit slow if you're trying to take a lot of pictures simultaneously if you hold down the shutter. If we have a burst, but again, it's a little bit slow on the main camera. We also have access to the filters that we can preview in real time. Slow if you are trying to take a lot of pictures simultaneously if you hold down the shutter if we have a burst, but again it is a little slow on the main camera. We also have access to filters that we can preview in real time, and we can tap on screen to adjust the focus and exposure, or we can enter Pro mode where we can change things like the focus, the white balance, the shutter speed, which can go up to 32 seconds, and the ISO, which can go up to 3200. It also allows us to take pictures in RAW as well as JPG for more advanced development, and the fact that it is a foldable gives you the facility to use it as a stand, and the viewfinder will adjust to the upper area, although it does not have a button to move the viewfinder to the lower screen so you can take advantage of other positions that you could have with a foldable. It is not able to show the preview if you want to take a picture in this stand mode using the main system, and that is an option that virtually all foldables allow, so it seems a weak point. So to take a picture, you must necessarily put it in selfie mode in this folded format, and there it also recognizes the gesture with the palm. However, in this position does not recognize the gestures you make with your hand. In automatic mode will not find the ability to scan documents, but it does bring a scanner mode within the camera that will automatically detect the edges to cut your sheets. And with respect to the QR codes, fortunately, yes, you can make an immediate scan from the same main camera interface to access the pages you want. The capture of moving objects is not so good in this device. The high resolution mode is 64 megapixels, and it seems that it does get to take advantage of very good way all the resolution that has this sensor, so you can make a crop of your photo and still appreciate an excellent level of detail. Although if you get too close, you may start to notice a lot of grainy outdoors photography will be positive in terms of color and resolution. However, the lens has a bit of chromatic aberration in areas where there is more lighting, but fortunately is not very high indoors, manages to illuminate perfectly well to avoid the appearance of noise or grainy, and maintains a good color saturation in backlight areas. Perfectly well the photograph to avoid the appearance of noise or grainy and maintains good color saturation in backlight. The preview does not look optimized, but the result after processing is correct but not spectacular, especially due to areas where it emits more light, where you feel a result not as advanced as what we could expect from a device of this price. But I must tell you that it was a very complicated environment, and so we will accept it at night will give an excellent result because it has the night vision mode with what can merge the pixels and improve the entry of light while maintaining a good level of detail. From the automatic mode, you will notice that it also automatically enables the night vision, so it is not necessary for you to manually access that mode, and that is a very positive thing because the results will be very good in terms of color capture and illumination of the darkest parts. This is a photograph in an environment with very low indirect light, and the result was very good in the zoom. You will also notice that it manages to take good advantage of the resolution of this sensor because you can see how the photograph can reach up to 8x digital, but the lines are well defined, unlike other devices that have a stretched photograph. But here it seems to take good advantage of the 64 megapixel sensor, and fortunately it doesn't have as much chromatic aberration as it does. Take good advantage of the 64 megapixel sensor. Now let me show you the results that we have with the ultra-wide camera, as it will give a good level of detail and fortunately does not have as much chromatic aberration as we find in cameras of other devices. Therefore, it seems to me that it has very good quality in this mode. In fact, at night the ultra-wide camera also manages to pick up a lot of light. Camera also manages to collect a lot of light, unlike other cameras of this style of other devices that suffer a lot at night. Also remember that having autofocus also works as a macro camera. So you get to notice all this level of detail in the small flowers and objects, but if you want a more aggressive bokeh effect for the background anyway, you can use the main camera and the result is still very nice. Portrait photography also seems to me very nice because if it manages to keep in focus the objects that are at our same distance, making a very nice bokeh effect also for the background. Therefore, it seems to me one of the most versatile cameras in the world of foldable cameras. Both the two rear and front cameras support video recording in 4K, and that's a very good thing. However, the ultra-wide camera does not support recording at 60 frames per second, which is a weak point because action scenes are usually shot with the ultra-wide camera at 60 frames per second, but this device does not have those capabilities. When recording a video, we will be able to pause and resume the content. We can also take a snapshot of that video we are recording, and we have a convenient ring to slide the zoom, although there are no preset buttons for immediate adjustment. We can't turn on the flashlight once we've started recording video, but what we do have is a little button for the external screen to show a small animation, but curiously it doesn't give us the preview of the video we're recording. In video recording, we will not find too many manual adjustments, only focus and exposure, as the Pro mode is reserved exclusively for photography. The result of the video is unfortunately choppy at times, probably due to the heating that can be generated when recording in 4K. So despite having support for this resolution, it is generally not recommended to use it. The colors and exposure look good, but the fact that it has cuts is unpleasant. Indoors again, we notice that the video is a little choppy, and in this case the appearance of noise is much more intense because there is not so much lighting present. Fortunately, the colors are well maintained, but it is not a video that I like very much. In backlight, I was surprised, although the dark area has a little bit of noise present, but actually the result is very good. When it stops detecting the face, it will balance better the more illuminated area. But what I like is that it doesn't completely burn that area when it detects the face, although the focus suddenly struggles a little bit more. At night, you will again notice a little more noise than we would like, plus the white balance can vary a little more as well. So overall, I don't think the camera performs very well in video recording. While in photography, we had also liked it at night. In the video, I think not because it has many variations of exposure, white balance, and a lot of noise presence. By default, it only has optical stabilization, but it does not have digital stabilization enabled, which may be fine for walking, but if you start running, it will be insufficient. Fortunately, you can add digital stabilization, so it improves when walking and a little when running, but not enough. Besides, the focus also moves a lot. Finally, the mode that you can enable for a much more aggressive stabilization is the horizon lock mode, although the video resolution drops to full HD, but in this mode you will get a much more stabilized shot when running with a lot of action. Regarding the zoom range, if you record with the ultra-wide camera, it only lets you zoom in to 0.9x, which is very limited. You can't dynamically switch between the ultra-wide lens and the main lens, so you have to stop the video recording and then zoom in. A lot of noise appears, although fortunately it maintains a very good stabilization. Also, once again, we will notice a bit choppy movement at times, which spoils the results a lot. The focus responds quickly thanks to the laser focus it has, although when switching from the foreground to the background you may feel a slightly slower response. However, it maintains good precision, but again in this video there is a choppy result, which is undoubtedly annoying. The device supports portrait video recording mode, and this is the result in full HD, curiously at 42 frames per second. If you are not moving much, you can get a positive result, but if you start to have more movements, it will be too noticeable that it is an artificial detection, since it also does not change the intensity of the blur when you move away or closer to the camera. The stabilization is good in this mode, but it should also be noted that the objects are not kept in focus, so the result can look very artificial when you are close to some objects. It has two slow motion modes. The highest is in full HD at 120 frames per second, and the result is good because you do not feel the movement choppy and maintains a good level of detail. If you want, you can enable the 240 frames per second mode to have a slower result, but the level of detail is decreased. It also has fast camera available in 4K and maintains good stabilization, so this element is one of its strongest points because there are other devices that have a much simpler fast camera, although it can go from 4 to 32x, which may not be as fast for landscapes. The front camera can also record video in 4K and has stabilization, but it also has some annoying cuts. The color is captured correctly, although it is not a very wide camera, so you have to stretch your arm a lot to get well framed. So it is a little uncomfortable to record with this camera. Backlit gives priority to illuminate the face, sacrificing the background indoors can also come to suffer a little more due to the absence of direct lighting, therefore appears more noise and colors lose intensity in addition to losing level of detail at night. We also have noise present, and in this case will be much more noticeable if there is an illuminated background because it comes to burn much in order to try to illuminate the face. Well, also, if you are not in an area with direct light, definitely will not be able to illuminate you. Well, the most advisable will be to record with the external system, although the main camera is very close and the viewfinder to be so small just gives you space to see your face and does not have a good stabilization. If you record with the ultra-wide camera, you have a much better perspective, but again, there is no stabilization enabled. Hopefully this can be corrected with an update because it would greatly improve the experience because the amplitude, if it gives a very positive result. And also remember that having autofocus is a camera that would be very useful for blogging, but stabilization is disabled. In addition to the focus at times can stay frozen also in the front camera. We do not find the slow motion option, but we have a fast camera with stabilization, which is also a very good quality as in the rear camera. Motorola also incorporates dual camera mode, so you can use both the rear camera and the front camera in the same shot. The resolution is full HD, although the colors feel a little bit pale, but for some content it can be useful. Also, the floating frame, you can move it around the screen and without stopping your video you can swap both cameras. If you start recording with the main camera, it lets you apply more zoom, and fortunately you also have autofocus enabled, so it is a feature that can be very attractive for some users. In fact, you also have a split screen mode that you can take advantage of with the same features that I mentioned a moment ago. This device comes with Android 13 and promises 3 years of software updates and 4 years of security patches. Is not the most advanced in the industry, but it is a good thing for the price range. Motorola has significantly improved the software, so now offers a sidebar where we can have shortcuts to some applications. In fact, these applications will run in a floating window mode, and YouTube, if it is compatible to view content in this way on top of other applications, although you can only open an application at the same time in this format. And another of the traditional features on Motorola is interactive screen, with which you could view your notifications easily, as well as swipe to some quick option if you want to reply mark as read, mute, or dismiss something. For example, in WhatsApp messages, you can have quick replies, so you can write a message without the need to open WhatsApp, although depending on your security settings, it will probably ask you to unlock the device first in the external screen settings. You will notice that we can switch between a good variety of styles and watch faces, although it doesn't have a store to download additional ones, nor does it have a tool for you to create your own watch faces. In that sense, it still feels like the experience could be improved, but it is positive. You can also change the panels that are available and the position they are in, so that if you want to change the position they are in, you can also change the panels that are available to you. You can also adjust the settings of the notifications that you want to appear on this external screen, and also the call settings in case you want the call to end when you close the phone. Being such a small screen, do not expect to have so many options. However, it seems to me that Motorola has used it very well, as it allows you access to quick phone settings, including the ability to turn on the flashlight, and the software is well thought out because it starts a countdown to not flash your eyes when using this tool. Also, we will be able to find here the panels that previously configured from the internal display, and as you realize, it seems to me that they are well designed to offer us a very good experience without a doubt. In fact, we can also access our notifications in this way, including WhatsApp notifications. You can read these notifications and even shows the reply button, although it will ask you to open the phone. It would seem to me a phenomenal option if at the time of answering a microphone is enabled to dictate the answer, so you have more. Finally, we have a huge variety of gestures compatible with this device, some to split the screen and open 2 applications at the same time, others to enable one-handed mode. But the ones that I find very useful and that are still present in these devices are the gestures to open the camera by turning the phone twice, or turn on the flashlight by shaking twice. This device, however, now also incorporates a gesture to give 2 taps on the back and perform some action. As you realize, you can select if you want to open a specific application or access any of the system tools. So really, the Motorola software seems to me extremely good, as it is very light for not having a layer of customization so heavy, but every time you add more options that are useful for users, The fingerprint reader located on the side is going to work correctly. Allows you to make up to 5 records, so you can perfectly register a good variety of fingers. The device also allows you to determine if you want to press the button or just put your finger on top for the unlock. It also has facial unlocking, but you know, it is a very simple unlocking only in 2 dimensions. Therefore, when configuring the device, tells you that people like you could get to unlock it to keep the device unlocked in secure environments. You can access Google Smart Lock, and here you can configure your trusted settings so that the device is not asking for your pattern or your fingerprint constantly. If you usually use a PIN to unlock the screen, you can access the Moto Secure application and enable the messy PIN option if you want. The numbers appear in a different order each time you unlock the screen. Within this application can also set the secure folder that you can access with a different pattern to the lock screen, and here you can safeguard applications and files privately so that others are not able to enter. But if what you are looking for is a safe environment for children, is also available the Family Space application of Motorola, where you can create different profiles of small, and when you access a space, you can also determine how long you want to last that session, and the child will have here your countdown and will only have access to applications that you have authorized him. If you want to leave, obviously going to have to verify through a fingerprint that you are the password manager to automatically fill out forms is the Google. However, you can only fill in passwords, and you cannot store notes or other information in a way that you cannot store notes or other information in a safe way. The password manager to autofill forms is Google's. However, it can only fill in passwords, and you can't store notes or other information securely like what we see on Samsung Pass Plus. By default, it autofills the fields without first verifying through your fingerprint that it's you. The good news is that you can only change through the settings in the Google section. You enter the autocomplete section, and that is where you put the option within the preferences that if you want to use biometric data within the Google settings, you will also find the option to find your device in case it has been lost. But being a Google implementation, it is a little easier to find your device in case it has been lost. But being a Google implementation, it is a little easier to find your device in case it has been lost. Google is a little simpler than what we could find in Samsung or Apple. But anyway, if you can get to locate your phone within a map finally, Motorola has the Team Shield technology to prevent any cybersecurity attack. So I would love to extend Team Shield to lock the device in case of theft or loss, but that still have not done. The battery is 4,200 milliamps, which sounds like a big figure. Considering it is a foldable, this may be because the external screen is very small, so there is more room on the internal components. However, let me tell you that in my tests, it performed less than the Motorola Razr battery of the Motorola Razr, which is smaller, so it seems like the processor is not well optimized, although it did take 1 hour and 24 minutes to discharge 50%, doing my action of having you to be on foreground while I am running a battery drainer that makes multiple calculations. Then the battery, definitely that is one of its weak points because it is not going to perform in a good way. It is likely that this device, if you get to make you suffer for finding a charger, you can help you from the battery saver that brings by here. But again, we see a weak point because it does not have an emergency saving mode that restricts you many more options. Supports charge of 33 watts, which is very fast. In 15 minutes, I recovered 35% and reached 58% with 30 minutes of charging. The full charge finished it in less than an hour. And in case you are one of the users who leave charging your phone all night, I recommend that you enable the optimized charging option so that the device learns your routine and charges slowly in those stages. Also has overcharge protection in case you are one of those users who need to have your device connected all the time to the charger. But unfortunately, this is enabled automatically when it takes 3 days connected, which seems to me an exaggeration. Hopefully soon Motorola will adjust this part. This device complies with connectivity as it supports Wi-Fi 6 networks. It also supports untapped networks, although it does not have a data lock mode so that some applications cannot access your plan. You can only set a maximum usage limit of the entire phone, but I wish you could restrict which applications can access your mobile data, even though it has a data saver mode. Motorola still does not put this option, only puts which apps you want to not have data saving restrictions. It also has Bluetooth 5.3, so you have very good stability in connections, and it also has NFC, so you can make mobile payments with the device using Google Pay or Google Wallet. Motorola also adds an important feature called Ready For that allows you to use this cell phone directly on your computer or with a larger screen, either wirelessly or via cable in a Windows format that you can use as if it were a computer, although it is still Android, but it can give you more flexibility, especially if you connect it with a wireless keyboard and mouse. Finally, if you connect it to your car screen, you can use it with a wireless keyboard and a wireless mouse. Finally, if you connect it to the screen of your car, it will also work well thanks to Android Auto with the sensors. Everything seems to go well until you realize that the proximity sensor is virtual, so it could be a bit problematic to enable it. This is a practice that is becoming more and more common among more manufacturers. The rest of the sensors are without any inconvenience. Motorola has not yet managed to develop an ecosystem of its own. It still depends a lot on Google, although it has some Motobots. However, they are developed by a different division than the division that makes smartphones, so there is not really a very good interaction between the two devices. Currently, they do not have a watch or a tablet, and remember that Motorola belongs to Lenovo, so we could perfectly ask for an excellent coexistence between a cell phone and a tablet or Lenovo computer. But it is not like that. It has nearby share-to-share files wirelessly between Android devices, and also remember that this application can be installed on Windows computers, so you can easily send files to a laptop, but definitely the ecosystem is not a point in which this device will highlight for good. Depends on Google both for cloud storage and for the control of the devices of the Internet of Things through Google Drive and Google Home, as all count are not technologies that Motorola has developed, and therefore we cannot get to highlight. Let's go to our test of opening applications, and while I tell you the specifications that has this device, that has the Snapdragon processor 7 Gen 1A processor that not many devices have used, and that makes me fear that still not many applications are optimized for him, accompanied by 8 GB of RAM and 256 GB of internal storage. It took more or less 3.3 seconds on average to open each of these applications. Honestly, it does not seem to me a spectacular time. I think it was a little slow, at least in this price range. Maybe we could already get a little more demanding, although notice that I already saw that I had more applications running in the background, so I'm going to leave only open the 16 apps that we usually test, so you can also see how it performs when scrolling among other apps. Since when opening them I did notice moments where it felt slightly clumsy, and it is exactly the same as you noticed here. When scrolling there are some small moments where it feels like the device gets to stumble slightly, although it doesn't seem to be something really serious overall. It does not seem to be something really serious in general. I think it will behave in a good way. Let's see now how long it takes exporting 4 United clips recorded in 4K with this same device to see more or less the power that could reach this processor is already the truth. It took too long, therefore I could not recommend this device to edit video in 4K. For games, Motorola has a special application where your gameplays are also collected and you have additional options to review and take advantage of your games. Also has several tools to avoid distractions or interruptions. You can block notifications and calls, but you can also allow some exceptions so that there are people who can interrupt. You can also block all kinds of gestures to avoid unwanted touches or activations of tools you do not need at that time. And even also allows you to disable the automatic brightness to prevent the game from darkening when you place your hand over the light sensor. When you open a game, this button will appear with the tools I mentioned a moment ago, plus other tools to take screenshots and video recordings, and the function of acoustic lights that will serve you to play in silence. But still, thanks to the lighting that shows you on the sides, you can know if the sound comes from the left or right, and thus you can know if your enemies come from any side. Also, you can share your gameplays, improve the sensitivity of the screen. You can also reopen the game library. You can also reopen the library of games, enable the settings, modify the brightness and volume. And what I like most is that you can add in the settings some applications so you can run on top of the game, so you do not have to leave to answer a message or a notification. In Call of Duty by default loads the very high quality at a high rate, however also has available the maximum frame rate, keeping the quality very high. And remember that being a Snapdragon processor, if they come enabled various effects that you can use for a better graphics experience. The results are seeing them on the screen, but we can tell you that it had started at 60 frames per second, but after a minute and a half of the test, it dropped the performance to 45 frames per second. Limited probably due to the heating that it faced, because really the device got to heat up in a very important way, and that is very strange because in this game generally the devices of today do not get to suffer so much. However, this device did heat up in the game of Legends. We have everything in automatic, but for the test we set it in a high quality and we raised it up to 60 frames per second. Again, you are seeing the results on screen, but we still conclude that due to the heating, the device stumbled in its performance because it maintained a good stability but without reaching the 60 frames per second that we had set in the configuration. So the heating is still doing its thing, and wow, it was too high. Is a heating that comes to bother a lot in the hand, then it is not a device that I want to recommend. If you are looking for the highest performance in the game of SpongeBob, was by default the resolution and high quality. The default resolution and high quality at 60 frames per second. However, it should be noted that the smoothing option was not available, probably due to lack of compatibility with this processor. The result again was very similar to what we had already seen in previous games. Again, we noticed that the performance is still limited due to the heating that had faced the device, although this game is less complex than the previous one, so the temperature decreased a little, but it is still too high, a temperature that can very uncomfortable when playing Finale and Genshin Impact. By default, we have the low quality, but for the test we set it to high quality and we raised it up to 60 frames per second to test the processor. I must say that for this test we had let the device cool down to give it a little chance to improve. And curiously again, the performance was limited, not getting to exceed 30 frames per second when in the configuration we had set 60, so it confirms us that it is not a device that is intended to play games, despite the fact that it is not a device that is designed to play games. Device that is designed to play, although it gives you a good stability but really does not allow you to reach frame rates per second. So high seems that the management that has this processor gives priority to stability and sacrifices the high rates of frames per second. And also remember that the battery can be exhausted very fast, and that was all about the Motorola Razr 40 Ultra. I hope you liked this video review. If so, you know you can indicate it, and we'll see you next time.